So the last will be first, and the first will be last. We are challenged by these words. There's that phrase again, that little needling phrase that always makes its way into the text one way or the other. The last will be first and the first will be last. We like that phrase most of the time. We like it whenever we're the underdog and we're struggling and we're the last one picked. We like it when we see the rich and powerful flaunting what they have and living a life that we could never even dream of. We like it when we're denied services or anything that anybody else has. We like it when we want the playing field leveled in our favor. We want it when we seek revenge or punishment. We want to win, and we want to see those people who have done wrong punished. We don't like it, however, when we're the ones feeling cheated. Let me tell you a story. I'm going to tell this same story in a little bit of a different way. Henry got up before dawn. He got dressed. He moved around the house quietly. He even waited until he got outside to put his boots on so that he wouldn't wake the family with the clatter. He stopped at Wawa to pick up a coffee. Then he walked to the corner where the other day laborers were already gathering, waiting for the truck from the nearby vineyard farm to pick him up and hopefully choose him to be one of the handful of workers for the day. He hoped that today he would get the chance to work. He'd been lucky a couple times this month, but that was it. But with the rent already late and the disconnect warning from PSE&G in the mail already, he was stressed about how he was going to provide and feed for his family. As he reached the corner, he tried not to make eye contact with the other guys on the corner. They were his competition, and he had to do something to make himself be chosen over them. But as he approached, Joe, an unshaven, hole in his filthy hoodie, reeking of a mix of bad body odor and gin, stood up from his seat on the curb. "Hey," says Joe. And he puts his hand out for a shake. Henry put both his hands on his coffee cup and took a sip. "Hey." Joe started to tell Henry about the night he had last night and how cold it had gotten on the street and the fire that they made and the new joke that they had learned. And he started to tell it, and Henry stood quietly hoping that the truck would be early enough, if for no reason, then he could get away from the hideous smell. 7 o'clock on the dot, the landowner pulled up, and he offered $100 for a day's work. Henry brushed his hair with his hand, stood up straight, moved intently through the crowd, toward the boss and away from Joe, trying to be noticed and even managing a smile. Joe? He seemed disinterested. Of that, at least in the truck. He was very interested in finishing his story, though, and he kept at Henry's side, continuing prattling this joke. "You," the boss shouts as he points at Henry. "Oh, thank God." And he and the few others hop on the back of the truck. As they pull away, he pretended he didn't notice Joe sitting back down on the curb. The pickers entered the vineyard, and as the hours passed, the sun grew hot. Henry didn't mind at all. He was happy to have the work, and he kept on picking, filling basket after basket with beautiful ripe grapes. And around noon, they broke for lunch, and he noticed the foreman's truck pull up with more workers. "Must be a good year, I guess," he thought. When the coffee break was called at 3, he saw the truck again, more workers. And then, 5 o'clock, he saw even more workers getting off the truck. And there was Joe, trying to figure out how to get down off the back of the flatbed. Oh, no, thought Henry, and as Joe approached the field, he turned his back and pretended not to see him. An hour later, the whistle blew. Everybody gathered at the truck for their pay. Henry was hot and sweaty and hungry, but happy. He walked patiently as the owner gave each group of workers their pay. He had done a good day's work. He felt proud. He thought of his family at home and how they would be able to keep their home for one more month. And he smiled to himself. He looked over at Joe, hand outstretched as the farmer put a crisp $100 bill into his filthy palm. Wow, thought Henry. Wow, this guy just got here and got $100. I wonder what I'm going to get. I might be able to even pay more than my rent. Maybe I'll get the utilities paid. Maybe there'll be enough left over to get some meat, some fresh vegetables for the kids. Oh, gosh, they have so many needs. When it was time to get Henry paid, he put his hand out and also got a crisp $100 bill. Now, if we were Joe, we'd probably be okay right now. We'd be thankful. We'd be glad to have been rescued at the end of the day, and we would be thinking about how lucky we are to have some cash in our pockets. But if we're Henry, well, he'd done everything right. He had the right attitude. He had the right work ethic. He put in a full day only to get the same pay as Joe, who, of course, Henry surmised was going to go directly to the liquor store and waste that precious money on booze. Now, at this point, we might feel like we want to side with Henry. That's normal, because Henry is the right kind of least of these. He's hardworking. He's honest. He's got a family to support, and he wants to work. Henry's the right kind of least of these. Henry represents the last we want to go first. He's who we want to make sure we help. So yes, Henry, go complain. We'll join the union with you. We'll complain with you. There's no justice there, and that's not the way the world is supposed to work, right? Right. That's not the way the world is supposed to work, but it does. But it's not the way the kingdom of heaven works. And this parable is about the kingdom of heaven, where everything we know is flipped on its side. The kingdom of heaven is on a different system than the world system. The world works, we get what we earn. We get paid for what we do. But the kingdom of heaven is a different system. It's designed by God, not by people. Just like nature. All are cared for in God's systems. Self, nature, people. This way, everything thrives. In the kingdom of heaven, we don't get what we deserve. We get what we need. We don't get what we earn. We get what will build up the whole of humanity and indeed all of creation so that everything flourishes. God designed it that way. Henry's biggest problem wasn't that he got the same pay as Joe. It was that he compared himself to Joe and then felt superior to Joe, and so did we judge Joe. And he saw the landowner as having the responsibility to do the same, to find him more worthy than Joe. And the landowner asks Henry after he complains, "Isn't everything mine to do with as I please, or are you envious because I'm generous?" That's the real line there. That's the problem we have with the story. How could the landowner, well, let's just cut to the chase, right? How could God be that generous? How could God want to be generous to those who clearly don't deserve it? How could God give to those who will just waste the resource? What's the use of even trying if God's going to give us all the same anyway? Why do we even have to be good? It makes sense not to be. Just take what we want for ourselves because God's going to give us everything we want anyway. Makes things so messy for us as believers when God is generous like that. We're supposed to be good, aren't we? So that we get what we deserve from God. And the bad people, they're supposed to get what they deserve, right? We can count on that. We're supposed to be able to count on that. It's all over the Psalms. The wicked shall perish, the righteous will flourish. Whose side do you want to be on? It's the whole point of being good, isn't it? So God will be happy with us and give us fill in the blank. Here's the thing about God's justice system. It's perfect. It's perfect. And God's generosity extends to all, not just the ones we deem worthy or good or righteous. Thank God. God's provision is such that all of us are loved equally, regardless of who we are or what we do or don't do. Thank God. And God's system takes into account our life circumstances, the things we've been through, the ideas that we've learned about ourselves and our others and things. Thank God. And God's love is one of equity, where even in our challenges, emotional and physical and spiritual, we are given what we need to live in rich, full community with each other. Thank God. The parable teaches us that when we value everyone the same, the way God does, we get all we need to succeed. You need convincing? Look at nature. Look at nature. Nothing in nature compares itself to anything else in nature. Yes? Everything from the grandest tree to the smallest, most annoying mosquito has a purpose and fits into the system that is God's. It's perfect. Fair share means seeing everyone as having not just a vital place in society or in creation, but a vital place in the social and spiritual hierarchy. Everyone is valuable to us. There is not one soul that is not crucial to our survival. And you can look anywhere you want. You can go to... I had tough funerals this week. You know what the biggest thing people needed to hear? They're valuable. That they're loved and they're worthy. No one should be dismissed. No one can be dismissed, or we don't work. How different would the story have played out if instead of working so hard to distance himself from Joe, what would have happened if Henry befriended him? Instead of pushing to the head of the line to be chosen, what would have happened if Henry sat and lingered and listened to the joke? What would Henry's day have been like, sitting back down on the curb, talking to Joe, learning and laughing and loving? What if he waited with Joe and aligned himself, instead of with the first, with the last, with the not picked, with the marginalized? How would both Henry and Joe have been transformed even in that short day? And at 5 o'clock, when only the dregs are left, or what we would call the dregs are left, which is now Henry and Joe, what if they got on the truck together? That's fair share. It's the basis of God's design for creation played out here with us. There is enough for all of us because God makes sure of it. If we don't hoard, if we don't self-promote, if we don't push ourselves to the front of the line to secure for me, for us, for just the ones in my circle, there is enough for everyone, and I promise you we will be richer for it. It's just love, folks. It's just love. May God bless you today.